Welcome to the Eddie Lam Show. We dedicate this podcast to interviewing musicians of every kind, as well as online content creators on social media. Whether if they're starting out or if they're already on the rise and still growing, this show is all about having a fun conversation with our guests, talking about their favorite things that relate to their passion for their projects. Thank you so much for tuning in, and let's have that conversation. Performing on stage can be one of the most frightening experiences, especially if you're still brand new to playing music live in front of people. Our guest for this episode will be talking about how he overcame stage fright. He'll also chat about his unique original tunes and his previous experiences in the music scene from his hometown in Regina, Saskatchewan, before moving to his new home right here in Vancouver, BC. With that being said, our guest for this episode is singer and songwriter Luke Rossmo. I am in the studio with one of the most unique singer-songwriters who is originally from Regina, Saskatchewan, now living in Vancouver, BC, Canada. He's written some really amazing stuff that is influenced by such artists as Pearl Jam, Ed Sheeran, with a lot of emphasis on acoustic guitars and some really cool, deep lyrics and melodies. So without further ado, we have Luke Rossmo at the studio. How's it going, Luke?
It's going good, man. It's nice to be here. Thank you.
No worries. It's such a pleasure to have you here. So, of course, you and I, we first met at the open mic nights, which was at the Anza Club earlier this year in 2024. You know, what a soothing voice you have, man, and such solid lyrics, too. How did you like that experience playing at the open mic in front of people?
How do I like it? I adore being in front of people. It's funny. Yeah.
That's awesome. So let's travel back in time a little bit here.
Yeah.
So, of course, you're originally from Regina, Saskatchewan, as I mentioned. Can you tell me your experience in the music scene when you first started dabbling music in your hometown?
Yeah, definitely. Regina, Saskatchewan, little prairie town, and it's devoid of much culture. It's isolated and kind of lonely, and yet there's actually a really vibrant, deep music community, which I was completely divorced from for basically my whole life. And one day, I was 28. I'd never stepped on stage, and I thought, well, I don't want to die like this. Never having been on a stage.
Right. So
I went out to just a local open mic there, and it was unlike what I expected in that people were just unbelievably kind and supportive and friendly. Yeah, and it was a beautiful experience.
So it's a great community that you came across during your time there.
It was great, kind of, and then so I'm not sure if BC has an equivalent. I'm not sure to the extent how supportive it is, how I guess good it is. But we had Sask Music, which was a really good. They were incredible. Like, they did so much for local artists and provided so many resources, and were just there for people. And from that aspect, but also just kind of the people within the community. And there was a lot of, like I said, depth and talent in terms of what was the people that were coming out in that space. And they were all so kind and friendly. So it was really cool. Yeah.
That's amazing. Has there been any other talent that you saw at the open mics there that stood out to you? Anything unique, any memorable moments that you remember going to the open mics, or even just shows in general in Regina? Yeah,
there were, they weren't in the open mic scene at the time, but Megan Nash, she's a singer-songwriter from the prairies. I think she's definitely gained some traction, at least Canada-wide. And then Coulter Wall, who's Saskatchewan-born, was blowing up around that time as well. But my fondest moments were the friendships that I formed with the musicians, and that'll happen off stage.
Indeed.
Yeah. And good relationships that, have transcended our moves in our lives. We've all moved on in so many ways, and some of us are still connected, and that's really, really nice.
And when you talk about Saskatchewan, like sometimes, people don't often think about some really amazing artists that come out of that province. But then, of course, at least, for you and I, being Canadian, at least for me, one that comes to mind from Saskatoon, obviously, is Wide Mouth Mason. Right?
Yeah.
They're such a power trio. And, because I got a chance to know Sean and Earl, actually. And, they're really, really, really nice guys. Very, very solid people.
Beautiful.
It's so cool that you mentioned all the other talent from that province. But now, fast forward, you're now here in Vancouver, BC, Canada. So what made you decide to move over here?
Yeah, that's a good question. So adventure, really. We needed something different. We love to be outside, and Saskatchewan, if you haven't been, there's no reason to go. It gets unbelievably cold.
Right.
And it's bleak and dreary in the winter, and then the summers are like unbelievably hot.
Yeah.
And so we just kind of bounce between these two extremes that are they're hard to live in.
Right.
And it's a little bit more conservative out there. So we came out here for adventure, the mountains, the weather, the ocean, and we have my wife and I, we have a 4-year-old, and we just wanted to give him a very broad general experience and expose him to all of the different culture and things going on here.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So now, with you being here, now we know that you've released a bunch of really cool music, which is, of course, folks, it's online on Spotify, which you should check out. Now, before we get into that, obviously, you mentioned that you were still in your 20s when you checked out the open mic nights out in your hometown in Regina. But one of the things that you have mentioned before is overcoming stage fright, and which a lot of us who were green when it came to playing music on stage, that can be a challenge that we face quite often for many different various reasons. Maybe it's because, is the audience gonna like my stuff? Oh, what if my guitar string breaks? The what ifs. Yeah. So my question to you is, how have you overcome such a challenge that we performers often face?
Yeah, it's interesting. So when I was in high school, I would watch, my friends and my peers perform, and my issues with performing, I think they're a bit deeper than just stage fright. I don't mean to demean stage fright or say that that's not a real hindrance, but I remember hearing a voice in my head when I watched my friends, and it was like, you can never do that. And it was like, what I remember it just echoes in my brain. It's like, I won't say their name, but what do they have that you don't have?
Right.
And it was this point of comparison, and this idea of what performing on stage meant, and I really associate it with perfection.
Right.
And music, and good music, it's never perfect. It's not something to aspire to. My favorite band, they make mistakes, and ironically, out of those moments come the most powerful moments. It's the most enjoyable time. They look at each other and laugh, and it's fun and funny. So that narrative persisted through my life, and it built and gathered momentum and steam, and it felt like an impenetrable wall, to be honest. And yet there was something that I wanted to do it more than anything else in the world. It was just play music on stage, like plain and simple.
That's amazing.
And I was 28, and I had an experience where I imagined myself on my deathbed. And I thought, would you be okay dying never having been on stage, never
Right.
getting over this. To say fear, it's like it falls short. It was like
Right.
it would be the death of me, like that.
Right.
That's how it felt.
Yeah.
And the idea. So in that moment, on imagining myself on my deathbed, I was filled with this sense of regret,
Right.
and that feeling of regret transcended a millionfold the fear that I had. And I knew that I was going to get on stage, and that moment I'm going to get on stage, and I'll do it if it kills me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I went out and got on the open mic stage and faced that fear the first time, and it didn't kill me.
That's amazing.
And on the other side, I felt a sense of freedom and joy that I never felt before. And
Awesome.
it was really, really powerful. And so that was the moment. So fear, I think, is, we feel that it's very human to think, well, it's a barrier, but I see it now as a call forward. I had a ton of fear, the idea of moving across the country, and
That's right. Yeah.
I've done all sorts of things, been terrified of, and my life has only gotten bigger and more beautiful as a result.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's an invitation. So that's part one. And
Yeah.
then I got a quick part two.
Sounds good. Lay it on me.
All right, let's go. So, so that led to a lot of, it was an open door, and it led down a new path, and lots of fun and adventure down that path, and it persists and grows today. But I would always imagine myself, you talked about stage fright and like breaking a string. Well, I would imagine things like forgetting my lyrics, or like,
We've all been there. Yeah.
yeah, but I'm not on stage, but I'm like imagining worst case scenarios. And so I was always approaching the stage with a ton of anxiety and nerves, like nerves. I'm scared. And I'm not anymore. I approach the stage now with just a ton of excitement. I can't wait to play.
Yeah.
And what changed for me was the way that I was imagining things, which sounds silly, but y'all should go try it. So now I imagine myself just having the best time and putting on the absolute best show, and people talking after and, talking amongst themselves and saying, that was incredible. Like, wow.
Yeah.
And just knowing that, and that brings a different energy forth. So those are some of the things.
It's good to hear that, especially how you compare how you are now versus how you were back then, right?
Yeah.
Like how much you've grown. If you were to go back in time and talk to 20-year-old self, what would you say to him?
The things that you believe so deeply to be true about yourselves are just a story in your head. And you can do, this is stuff I tell my kid now, and stuff that I want to show him through my example. You can do anything you want, and you can do anything you want. You need to believe you do, and move towards it, and do stuff. And you believe in yourself. It takes steps, man.
And speaking of making things happen, so of course you released some really solid recordings on Spotify.
Yeah.
Of course, the more recent one that you have is Little Bird.
Yeah.
And you talk about the little bird spreading its wings and fly off. Now we know there's a little bird in all of us, right? We've all had to step out of our comfort zone to spread our wings and fly to where we're meant to be, right?
Yeah.
Now, is this referring to anybody specifically?
Oh yeah, Little Bird's about me. It's
I was going to guess maybe it's about your son as well, but yeah.
Oh no, it's my son's amazing. He's fearless in that he will. Dad, I want to do that. Can we do that? Can I do that now? And we nurture that in him. Like, of course we can. Let's figure out how to do it. How are we going to do that? No.
Yeah.
Little Bird's about it's about fear, and
Right.
it's really. I wrote it recently, being on the other side of so many fears, and living life on the other side, which is, like I mentioned, it's big and beautiful and ever expanding. And And Little Bird is about, it's an invitation to the little bird to spread his wings and fly, even though, that little bird is thinking, well, what if I fall and hit the ground and die?
Right.
That's an image in the song. And the counterpoint is, well, little bird, you're going to die in a tree if you don't spread your wings. And
True fact, by the way.
Yeah, it's like, but the way it comes across, it's an invitation to spread your wings and step towards to spread. It's an invitation to the listener,
right,
to spread their wings.
Right.
My wings it's a certain thing to me, but I think all of us have a thing that we fear deeply. And that is the invitation to growing.
Right.
It's not for me. It was music, and it's been music, and it's been a number of other things. But what your thing is in your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. And that's really good that you explained that to us about that song, because it's a very catchy song. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, sweet, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, another compliment I'm gonna give you with that song too. So my wife is a sucker for these animal rescue documentaries, including Hope for Wildlife. Okay. I could see that being the theme song for such a docuseries, including that.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
I love that.
I think right now the current theme for Hope for Wildlife is, I think it's still Hello Beautiful, which you should definitely check out too.
Check it out.
It's a really catchy theme song, but I really feel like, if they had one specifically for bird rescues, bird rescues specifically, that could be the song for
that's
that.
the song. Yeah, great.
That's just me talking, No. I mean, if they could, there's one based in BC called the Great Bear Rescue, but if they can do one called, the Great Bird Rescue or something like that, your song, it should be first in line.
I love it. We'll tell my publisher.
Exactly.
First, we got to find a publisher.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
One thing at a time.
Oh yeah. Hey, you can be your own publisher too.
Yeah, of course, definitely.
Yeah. And then of course, Floatin'. That's another great tune from you. We got to give credit to the people behind that production, though. I mean, obviously you had an amazing trumpet player in that track. Who is that trumpet player?
Oh no, you're putting me on the spot. He came in for one day. We did not stay in touch. Oh man, what's his name? Lamb. It's something Lamb. You've completely stumped me. He lives in Regina. He's part of another band. They're awesome. It's going to escape me. Man, we recorded that a few years ago. So he was literally in the studio probably an hour.
Wow.
Yeah, like in and out in an hour.
Wow.
And it was me and my producer. So I know my producer really well, Justin Bender. I'll shout him out. He's awesome.
Awesome. Yeah.
We were, it's funny. I think Floating is, it's just a vibe. Mm-hmm. It's just a vibe song. I think I'm really proud of a lot of the lyrics in a lot of my songs, and that song's just a vibe, but the trumpet makes that song.
Well, especially the solo at the end of the track is just pretty much it's like the great way to exit the song.
It's perfect.
It's like the treat. It's like, okay, you listen to all the lyrics. Here's a trumpet solo as a reward for checking out the song.
I love that you're saying that, because we write songs and then they're done, and then we get to listen to them, and I feel the same way. I'm like, the trumpet just makes, it's like, I have another song and it's the piano in the song. It makes that song. And for that one, it's, the trumpet, man. It's so good.
That's amazing.
I love it.
Yeah. Is there anybody else you want to give a shout out to who did the instrumentation for that song?
We hashed it out together. Like, it was really my producer and I, and we worked this way. I did an album with him, and then we did Little Bird together, and we did Floating together. We did another song that I'm sitting on. I don't know if I'll release it, but the way that we work out the instrumentation is very collaborative, because I write and play on acoustic guitar. That's my jam.
Yeah.
And then we get to bring in these awesome musicians, and we're just exploring the ideas that fit the song. And so I really just got to give it up to Bender and then the musicians that we've had. And they're local to Regina.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Local pros, man. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love
And
that.
they're fantastic. Yeah.
So let's go to the album Pieces of Me. So,
all right.
Yeah. So
You got it. Yeah.
So Life's Wave has that really punchy bass. I mean, that's the first thing that stood up for me with that song.
Yeah.
With Life's Wave, like that punchy bass gave. Well, I mean, you gotta think about it this way, because obviously your influences, one of the many influences include Pearl Jam, right? And we remember how Pearl Jam had that really nice crunchy, punchy bass in a lot of their songs. I can hear the Pearl Jam influence not just from your songwriting structure, but definitely from like how the bass sounded, but it blended well with your vocals. But even though like it still has that Pearl Jam vibe, your vocals still stood out. You know, it didn't sound like Eddie Vedder or.
Well, nobody sounds like Eddie Vedder. Nobody but Eddie.
Yeah.
But no, that song's cool. I like that song. It's a good jam song. And I like the electric guitar in that one too. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of electric guitars, of course, the next track, Broken Home, deep lyrics, obviously really heavy stuff. But at the same time, that's where I really felt the Pearl Jam influence on that, especially with some of those different chord changes that got involved in it too, right? It sounds like something that I could have heard from the first album of Pearl Jam.
Dang, I take that as a very high compliment. So I just thank you for that one.
Hey, anytime. And just to hear something like that, just lyrically, it's such a really, thought-provoking kind of tune, right? It just makes you think about a lot of things like family issues, right? And the part when you said all the king's horses and all the king's men using Humpty Dumpty lyricism on there, right? Couldn't put together the Broken Home again. And that I thought that was very clever of how you've used a classic nursery rhyme touching base on a very serious topic that I think a lot of people can relate to.
Well, a lot of my music it's very autobiographical. So it's funny you pull that line out of that song, man. I'm really proud of that lyric, and I think it's really cool because it does touch on this dynamic in a home and the effects on they can have on kids, and there's a kid in it, there's a young kid in that song, and and to bring in the nursery rhyme, it just it's like poking an open wound almost.
That's right.
It touches deeper for me. So I like that one too.
Yeah. But what we really enjoy about it is just it's almost like you're creating that social awareness, or just about that people do come from some really broken backgrounds from families or whatever it may be, right? But at the same time, because it creates that awareness, it's always good to remind people that there's always help available if you need that. And I'm really glad that you've written something like this, because sometimes not everyone always touch base on heavy duty subjects like this quite often. Like I guess depends on the genre, of course, right?
Yeah.
But it's really nice to hear something like this from other local musicians in the Vancouver area, especially, right? And I'm so glad you released something like this that gets us thinking. And I think that's what makes a good song stand out, is that not only is something catchy, but it makes us think. And I salute you for that.
Yeah, I appreciate you're being very, very kind, and I'll take it all. So thank you so much. And that I think when we share things like that, or I shared a story about being afraid and living a small life because of my fear, then people that are in that experience that might be shy or feel shame talking about it, they recognize they're not alone. Yeah. And so we can connect. And that's why we're here, I think.
Yeah. Awesome. And like I said, my hat's off to you for writing that really solid song.
Thanks, man.
Now, another one that stood out to me, of course, was the third track, Younger Years. So we got to give a shout out to another person who was on there. Of course, you had a female singer. And who was that?
That's a Nora. That's a Nora. Like Madonna.
Really?
Like Anora. She goes by Anora. And she was, so I met her on the local scene in Regina, and I just really loved her voice. And we were going to track that song, and I said, I think this needs a female vocal. And I said, I have someone in mind. I reached out to her. I was creeping Anora. Well, on Instagram, we see stories.
Of course, yeah.
Well, she shared it on her Instagram. She just got engaged.
Oh, no kidding.
Like this week. Yeah. So
congratulations, Nora.
Yeah, Nora. If you hear this, it's congratulations. I think they're in Thailand right now.
No kidding.
No kidding. They're traveling, and she put on an album, and she was writing really good stuff and catchy stuff, well written, and then she's got a great voice as well. So yeah, go check out Nora too.
Yeah. Do you think? Do you think her voice is what makes her stand out, or do you think it's her songwriting style? Like, what do you think makes her stand out as an artist?
That's a tough one.
Well, maybe I'll put it this way: what's the besides her songwriting style and her voice? Like, what else made you so impressed by her performance?
It's sometimes things aren't so tangible. So. How some people they can pull you in, they pull you in.
Yeah.
She pulled me in, and
awesome.
I was really drawn to many of her songs, and but it was her voice. It really
awesome.
was. Yeah.
That's amazing. So speaking of voice, obviously, we were just joking around earlier about the whole thing with Eddie Vedder's voice, right?
Yeah.
But this leads me to my next question, because obviously we know that a lot of your influences come from Pearl Jam. Do you have any top 3 favorite Pearl Jam songs that you want to put out there for us?
Oh no, just the whole album of 10.
Yes,
the whole thing.
Oh
it's just I just wish music came out like that these days. I just love that album.
We'll fast forward to even the late 90s / early 2000s, say it's Evolution. What do you think about that track?
No, I don't love it. I don't know. I just
fair enough. Yeah.
And I'm pretty selective with Pearl Jam. I don't like all their stuff. But that whole album 10, and then Just Breathe. I think it's Breathe or Just Breathe, that song.
Yeah.
Which is not really a Pearl Jam. It doesn't sound like a Pearl Jam song, but
right.
That's an incredible song.
Oh yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about concerts. What was the first concert you've ever attended that you really enjoyed?
Okay, those are two different things. The first one I attended was this concert. They were called Prozac. Do you remember them?
Oh yeah, the animated band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in grade 8 when we saw them. Man, the first one I really enjoyed. I think it's got to be 2008. I went to the Gorge to see the Dave Matthews Band, and the Dave Matthews Band is hands down my favorite band ever.
You know what? You are the second guest so far to have mentioned that you've went to a great concert at the Gorge.
Okay.
Because that is on everyone's bucket list too, is to go see a show at the Gorge.
It's a magical venue.
That's what I've been hearing, and I feel like I gotta check that out one day.
It's only 4 hours from here if you drive fast.
Actually, that's very true.
Yeah, you can totally get there for a Friday night show or Saturday show very easily.
That's amazing. Yeah. Because one of my previous guests here, Danny Black, she's another musician.
I know Danny.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah,
she's a great songwriter.
That's right. Yeah, because you and I saw her at the Amsterdam Club too, right? Yeah. So, and she mentioned that when she went to the Gorge, she and her mom went to see the Lumineers perform.
Oh yeah, cool.
Right. And so, well, I'll ask this question to you too as well. Yeah. Is there any other artist or band that you think deserves to play somewhere as beautiful as the Gorge? And who would it be if it were up to you to book this show?
Other than me?
Yeah, exactly. Well, how about this? Yeah, Luke Rossmo featuring insert other band that you love.
Okay, so besides the Dave Matthews Band, wow, that's quite a question, because it means that they're not quite at that level, right? Oh my goodness, I don't know if I can answer that. Bands I'd love to see, like, I don't know. I'd love to see John Mayer play there. I think
that would be cool.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
How about like a John Mayer and Friends or something like that?
Yeah, there you go.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I would see pretty much anybody at the Gorge though.
That's amazing.
Just because it is a magical venue.
Well, I like the fact that when people are telling me about the Gorge and I see pictures of it at social media, I'm just like, you know what? I need to be there one day.
Well, I think as a music fan, you go and you listen to music, and part of when you go to see music, it's you're not just listening. There's a feel. There's an overall ambiance and vibe, and
that's right.
Yeah, there's some magical venues out there. Have you been to the Malcolm Bowl in Stanley Park?
Oh, you know what? I have passed by there, but I've never been to an actual show there yet.
Okay, so I was just at a show there. I was invited to see Xavier Rudd, who I knew nothing about. And that show was a trip, by the way.
No kidding. No. I bet it was pretty epic.
It was, you know what it did is it expanded my idea of what, this is going to sound like I'm putting someone down, but I'm not. It expanded my ideas, my view, my perspective on what people will pay to go see in terms of a musical act. And I think that's really, really valuable.
Right.
Yeah, because he had some really cool songs. There's some really awesome things happening. And then he would he used a looper, and he would play some guitar riffs or piano, and then he would get behind the drums and play didgeridoos at the same time. And he turned it to like a rave, and it was,
oh my goodness,
it was crazy. And it was just, again, it was like this vibe, but that's a great venue too, like the Malcolm Bowl, and it's in our backyard.
Yeah, it's true. I remember I had a friend that went there to see Metric before, and I heard that show specifically was really solid. Of course, shout out to Emily Haynes for being such a great performer, and of course her and the rest of the band. Yeah. But yeah, you know what? Like I said, I've always passed by the Malcolm Bowl, but I've never actually gone into it for an actual show. So that's still, which is so funny because for me being born and raised here in Vancouver, I should have done something like that a long time ago, right? But
it's a great venue. I didn't even know it was there. I had no idea.
Oh, yes.
It's hilarious.
Well, you actually went to a really cool treat of a show, so I think that's amazing.
It was cool,
yeah. Yeah. Now, let's say if money's not an issue, right? Mm-hmm. Like you got zillions of dollars in your bank account. Let's say if you were wanting to travel to any place in the world to attend a specific concert or a festival as an audience member, which one would it be?
I really want to go to Red Rocks.
Right on.
Because it seems similar to the Gorge. I really like outdoorsy, naturey stuff.
Mm-hmm,
and
that's
then
right.
I'm going to get the name of it wrong likely, but there's this thing going on in Vegas called the Sphere. Did I get that right?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
I want to see that.
What you're talking about.
I want to go. Yeah. I want to go experience someone there. I don't know why, but U2 came to mind. Like, that'd be cool.
Oh, U2 playing there? Yeah. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up playing there one of these days.
I bet they do. That'd be a great show.
I think it'd be pretty epic, actually. Like, totally. Imagine hearing Edge's delay effects on his guitar, right?
It would just it would bounce off the walls. Like you would just. It would, like I said, I think it would be a cool vibe.
He probably wouldn't even need to use his effects as much because of that, because of the acoustics.
Edge, dial it down. That's funny.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Edge goes natural.
That's good. I think he might get lost if we took away his pedals.
Oh, I think he'd be thrown off.
Yeah,
totally.
I think he'd be lost.
Like when you're doing this kind of stuff for like almost 50 years, right?
Yeah,
right. Yeah. Speaking of which. You talk about U2. Mm-hmm. I mean, you look at bands like that, right? Mm-hmm. Who've done it all. Like especially with someone like Edge, who's brought so much to that table as a guitar player, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the iconic delay sound that everyone has heard, especially for those who grew up in the 80s, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then we talk about other people who perform, you know, that stood out. You know, of course, like you mentioned Pearl Jam too, being one of your main influences,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and they leave quite the impact on you as well, right? Mm-hmm. With you as a performing musician, what kind of legacy would you want to leave to the music lovers out there that says, "Wow, that is the Luke Rossmo sound"?
That's an interesting question. I've had some incredibly enjoyable moments being on stage, and I think I'm learning more and more how to. I was going to say create those, but that feels like an injustice. It's like allowing it. It's more. It's not personal. It's not really about me. So, maybe for people to leave a show and say, man, he had such a good time up there.
Yeah.
Because
indeed, that's awesome.
Yeah. I think if you're on stage having a good time, then you're not in your way. Mm-hmm. You're just playing. And it's so funny that we play music, right?
Yeah.
It's not like we job music
yeah,
or
exactly.
we work music.
That's right. Yeah.
You play it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it can be really easy for people to get in the way of play by thinking about playing, or,
mm-hmm.
you know, I think we can take it more broadly, even outside of music. Instead of living, we think about all the things we think we should or shouldn't be doing, and we turn it into something that it was never supposed to be in the first place. Is
right.
it just maybe all supposed to be play?
Right.
So I think if somebody left the show and thought, man, that guy, he's free up there and he's having a good time.
He's happy. He's just he's just killing it because he's really enjoying it.
Yeah, he just loves that. Man, that guy loves that.
Yeah.
And that's contagious.
Yeah.
I think the people that we love watching most and we love listening to most, that I think everything is secondary to we're enjoying them, enjoy it.
Yeah. I had a conversation with somebody not too long ago, and we were talking about this too. It's almost like, you know, like people can be, someone said that people could be the most skilled musicians out there in the world. You know, they can shred all they want on a lead guitar, or maybe, you know, they can, you know, do a backflip while dancing or whatever it may be. But let's say, you know, when you take a band, for example, we said that the one thing though that makes us enjoy the show is the band's chemistry.
Yeah.
Right. And it seems like, you know, that at least you know, for some of us, like, chemistry supersedes the skill ability, because, you know, again, like I said, you can be very skilled, but if the chemistry is there and everyone's smiling and enjoying each other's company while playing, you've already won the audience over. At least you won people like us over.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm really glad you brought this to the table to let people be aware about this, you know. And it's almost like, you know, we got to, at least back to what people say, it is important that you got to feel the music too, not just listening to it, but just like to feel it just by seeing how someone's enjoying it, seeing a band enjoying each other. You know, you can tell they love each other so much that you can feel that love between these bandmates.
I think that's beautifully said. And you know, my favorite band is the Dave Matthews Band, and when they play live, and they play live a lot, that's palpable. Mm-hmm. Like, you could just tell those guys adore one another, like family.
Yeah, exactly. And not to mention, they have one of the best drummers out there too.
Oh, he's amazing. Yeah, Carter Beauford's ridiculous.
Yeah, I've seen his drum tutorial videos on DVD before too. I'm just
really?
I'd
love to see that.
Yeah. I'm just like, wow, this is really cool, right? Just to see him, you know, show you how to do his tricks and all that stuff, you know. So yeah. of course, you were mentioning about the open mic community back home in Regina, but now with you being here in Vancouver, BC, like I said, I've met you from the open mic circle. What are your general thoughts of the open mic scene in Vancouver so far, from your experience?
Man, people, it's funny when you move to a place, you get to hear what everybody in the place thinks about the place and says about the place.
Yeah.
They project all of their stuff onto you and your experience. So people are like, oh, Vancouver people, they're not very nice. People in Vancouver, it's hard to make friends. And that's not been my experience at all. And maybe it's musicians. Maybe it's a sub niche of musicians that they're warm and accepting and kind and interested, and going to open mics or being in a room with musicians, I think for the most part it feels like generally you're stepping into just open arms.
That's right.
And that's the vibe that I get and the feeling that I get, and that's how people make me feel. So it's been really easy.
Yeah. And I think maybe just to put it out to all the folks out there, who might have been having a hard time making some friends with the Vancouver folks, I just want to let you guys know, don't give up. I think there's going to be some times where maybe we did hunt with the wrong crowd, right?
We got to find your people too. Maybe that's what it is I feel like it's like kindred spirits,
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I haven't given that part much thought, but yeah.
But like I said, folks, please don't give up. If Luke and I are able to find our people, you can too. Just don't give up and just keep looking and find the right people.
Yeah,
it'll happen.
Put yourself out there, and I don't know. Maybe this is helpful. I don't know why we're going here, but why not? If you feel like people aren't accepting or anything, it has nothing to do with you. It's about them.
And then like I said, that stuff takes time, right? So
and that's the other thing too.
Yeah. Awesome. Now, what advice would you give to up and coming songwriters who are brand new to this whole thing? Like they want to record albums, they want to get themselves out there doing shows and stuff. What would you tell them?
Don't overthink it. I'd also say your next show doesn't matter. And the reason I say that is just you don't need to put pressure on yourself. It's all just supposed to be fun. And coming back to this idea of play, it should just be an expression of joy and love. And if it changes into that, then you're taking it too seriously. And I would say write and don't judge your writing, and just let yourself write. And when the judgment happens, you just love that judgment too, and open up that door back up for the creative flow to come through. And when it comes time to playing shows, you just go play, and then you go play, and you go play, and you just have fun. That's I don't know. That's maybe what I'd say.
Yeah, indeed. Awesome. Good words to live by. Well, that pretty much wraps about everything, Luke. I just want to give thanks to you for coming down here to the show and just hearing about your stories. And I'm pretty sure everybody will want to get to know more about you for years to come. And so where could people find you on the interwebs?
Oh, all over. If you want to listen to music, my music, well, you can do it anywhere you stream music. But I'm going to share this because it's crazy. And I think the world could use a little more crazy. I have an impossible dream. So when I was 28, the thing that I wanted most in the world was just to be on a stage, period. And, there was that voice saying, well, you can't do that. So I actually want to play on stage with my favorite band in the world, and I've alluded it's the Dave Matthews Band. So
that's right.
I want to bring people along for that journey, and Instagram is probably the best spot. Luke Rossmo Music to come along the journey and support the journey and come along for the ride.
That's awesome, and you know what? I can picture you singing "The Space Between."
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite Dave Matthews songs. In case people didn't know about that,
Yeah,
but I can hear you. I can hear you singing that.
I'd love to sing now with those guys.
Yeah,
That would be amazing.
that's all. Is there anybody that you want to give a shout out to as well? It can be people here in Vancouver or anyone back home in Regina.
Nobody comes to mind. Nobody comes to mind. My wife, actually.
Mm-hmm.
She's incredibly supportive, and I treasure that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Of course, your amazing son, who is, like you said, he's so full of energy, right? And so enthusiastic. He's like, Dad, let's do this, let's do that.
Yeah.
Like, all right, let's give it a try.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go have fun. Yeah,
that's amazing.
So, maybe on your behalf, again, I want to, of course, we give a big shout out to all the amazing producers who've made your song come to life. Your producer, the instrumentalists who've helped out, right? And of course, again, big shout out to Honora, who again,
people on the tracks. So Justin Bender. So he lives just right around Regina, and he's an incredible person to work with. Not only is he he's so good at what he does, but he's one of the kindest, sweetest people, and that makes working with somebody very, very easy.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about the bass player, so that guy, that's Byron Chambers, and he's really involved in the local music scene back in Regina as well.
That is so awesome.
Yeah, and he's also a sweetheart. Those are guys you can just hang with and hang with them for hours. They're so easy to be with.
Yeah.
We've had a couple different drummers on. He's in the band called Bleecker. He's the drummer for this band. Do you know Bleecker?
I'm not too sure if I've heard the band. No.
He goes by Chris Dingus, but that's not his name. That's funny. I can't remember his name. He's such a good guy too, Chris.
Yeah.
He played drums on most of the tracks on the album. But we've had some really good times in the studio together.
That's awesome. Yeah. So again, big shout out to all those amazing names we've mentioned who have made Luke's songs magically come to life, and I can't wait for more releases from you. But in the meantime, folks, make sure you check out Little Bird, the latest release from Luke Rossmo. It's an amazing, catchy song. You don't want to miss out. With that being said, Luke, thank you again for being here.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's been a blast.
No worries. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Again, make sure you support Luke and his amazing musical journey and all my other guests from the past and the guests to come. And we will see you next time. We hope you enjoyed this episode of The Eddie Lam Show, a podcast dedicated to interviewing musicians and online content creators of every kind. If you would like to be a guest on the program, feel free to send me an email at eddielammusic@gmail.com. That's EDDIELAMmusic@gmail.com. Don't forget to check out my website at eddielammusic.ca. That's EDDIELAMmusic.ca. You can also follow me on social media. Username is Eddie Lam Music. That's EDDIELAM Music on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you so much for tuning into our program. In the meantime, stay in touch, stay safe, and as always, stay awesome.